Man, oh man, I genuinely don't know where to even begin. So much right now is changing for Spider-Man and his cast of characters. Some, interesting ideas and stuff that's not really the greatest, but also some things that are very interesting and actually pretty cool in where it can go and what it could mean. And if you've been keeping up with the series so far, you would know that there's two sides to Spider-Man currently. You have Peter Parker and Spider-Man here quite literally, and this comic's no different. Here you have Earth-bound Spider-Man and maybe even cosmic Spider-Man. But what we get here is a confrontation between the current acting Spider-Man and the other party being Peter Parker. Now, it's obvious that they aren't who they seem, neither one of these are the real Peter or real Spider-Man, nor are they connected in any way. Due to the absence of the real Spider-Man, two different people have taken up to fulfill the roles of the average Joe Peter Parker and the other superhero Spider-Man. Of course, with them being opposing sides, eventually they come to blows, attacking one another and neither one really getting the upper hand. With this mysterious person who is masquerading as Spider-Man, him going on to say, "The city needs Spider-Man, and for now, at least I am that Spider-Man." But the fake Peter Parker knows this, him going on to give this imposter Spider-Man an 8 out of 10 on his new suit. And obviously it's hiding a different build underneath the suit, not Peter Parker's. And the suit has more tech in it, allowing him to mimic the superpowers that normal Spider-Man would have. But the real giveaway to show that, he isn't legit is that he doesn't have any spider sense, as he clocks him across the face, to prove that point. And even though this imposter Spider-Man has abilities to mimic the powers, obviously they're not at the same capabilities of normal Spider-Man, because as he chucks and throws the fake Peter Parker, it's physically straining on the imposter Spider-Man as he yells out in pain, though he was strong enough to dent a chimney nearby, which also just clues you in that the person masquerading as Peter Parker, he isn't just some average human either. He has to be pretty fast, strong, and durable to survive these hits. But this fake Peter has had enough of hiding and masquerading who he truly is, activating his other powers, and it being finally revealed that this person who is taking up the Peter Parker aspect of, Peter's life is none other than his clone, Ben Reilly, or his current persona, Chasm. And if you're unfamiliar how, a clone of Peter Parker became this Chasm and has these other almost magical abilities. A couple years ago, back in the Beyond storyline, Ben Reilly was working for the company and eventually fell into a vat of chemicals, mutating him even further, giving him more abilities, but fracturing his mind and making him unstable more than he has ever been before. Though he has got slightly better and more stable to be a functioning member of society. So when the real Spider-Man went missing and Peter Parker, Ben Reilly stepped up to fill that gap and fill that void until they can find where Peter truly went. Though to his surprise, when he's seen a fake Spider-Man masquerading around, he had to confront him and find out why. And even as they continue to come to blows and fight, Ben still has that one same question. What gives this intruder, this fake pretender, the right to call himself Spider-Man? As he now chucks him aside and throws him into that same brick chimney, instead now with actual super strength, knocking the entire thing over, forcing the imposter Spider-Man, or fake Spider-Man, whatever you want to call him, to web it up and stop it from completely tumbling over, crushing what we will see civilians, kids underneath it. Just showing you that yes, this Spider-Man, even though he isn't the real one, he still is trying his best to be a hero, to do the right thing, to fill the gap of the Spider-Man part of Peter Parker, while Ben Reilly chose to do the Peter Parker side of Peter Parker. Though on the other hand, Ben Reilly himself wants to be that same hero and help people, yet he always takes it too far or just isn't as careful as a hero should be, making him pretty reckless. But even as Black Cat chimes in on a matter who is watching from afar, they both now chime in on what to do now with the real Peter missing, deciding to ditch their superhero personas and talk it out face to face in normal civilian wear. We found out that even Ben Reilly has no idea where Peter is or what happened to him. But at the very least, he does know that he is alive. Not in any normal way, like Peter leaving a message or a note saying, "Hey, I'm okay, I'm just doing my own thing over here," but it's kind of like a feeling in the back of his head, a clone bond, if you will. Because if you remember the 8 deaths of Spider-Man storyline when he was fighting the Scions and kept dying over and over again, every time he died, Ben felt a part of him in the back of his conscious, the same kind of feeling that the spider sense gives off. Every time Peter would die, a void appeared, an empty feeling, and anytime he came back alive, that same void disappeared and was filled. So his clone sense is still going off, knowing that Peter is alive. Just the real question now is, where is he and why did he decide to ditch everything and everyone he knew and loved? And the obvious answer is just to look back at what he suffered previously, the defeat by Hellgate, which in the moment was a pretty big thing for Peter, making him part of some mystical prophecy. So that kind of connects the dots there. Though that kind of leaves the other question of why is Ben specifically posing as Peter and taking up part of his life? I mean, sure, that makes sense, so no one raises alarm. Peter Parker's gone, let's search for him, whatever. But it also is a little selfish for Ben, Him taking the structured life of Peter Parker, who already has a good job, is well known, has a family. It gives more meaning and more structure to Ben Reilly's life, who is the clone of Peter Parker, so it just kind of makes sense. Cool, but what about Spider-Man? Who is this masquerading fake imposter? Whoever he is, we find out that he is pretty smart, intelligent, and calculating. Because for him, tonight was valuable. Because even though he fought Ben Reilly, the other clone, and has deep muscle contusions, or bruises basically, the battle and confrontation gave him clear data that he's improving, able to better keep his emotions in check. And if anyone was going to set him off, it was going to be a clone of Peter Parker punching him through a building. Because before then, this pretender was thinking about giving up and quitting. If he becomes an animal every time he engages and swings across the city, then he's not as valuable. He's a liability to the dream. Because yes, he was being way more brutal, breaking bones and sending people to the hospital with life-threatening injuries, though now he has had a change of heart. He can't do that to Peter. He owes him too much. Because he has saved his life in the past, he will save his dream and his legacy. As it's revealed that this Spider-Man is not only someone close to him, but almost equally at odds. Yes, it's Norman Osborn, which is just I don't even know how to feel about this decision and twist. Making Norman the temporary Spider-Man to fulfill his place? I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense, Norman has turned a new leaf. He no longer has his goblin persona and is trying to do good now, and with Peter gone, who can blame him for wanting to save and fulfill a legacy, a dream of a hero, rather than his tainted one of a used-to-be supervillain? His reasoning being that until he returns, in which Norman does believe he will, the city should have hope. It will have a Spider-Man. Though normally, Norman has his own enemies, and so does Spider-Man. So when they combine and Norman becomes Spider-Man, yeah, those same enemies are going to still be after him, maybe even new ones as we see here. Someone watching him through the penthouse apartment that he is in, getting ready to do something nefarious, or possibly even kill this new Norman Osborn Spider-Man hybrid. Great, we know what's happening on Earth. Peter's civilian life is covered, and his superhero life is also covered, yet that just leaves one giant question. Where even is Peter? And why would he just abandon everything that he has worked for, lived for on Earth, not even telling a singular soul? Well, now our questions finally get answered as we move light years away from Earth. Yes, across the galaxy, no, universe away, picking up on some alien planet. The comic going on to say that all I see is darkness. My body is alien to me now. Sure, I can still register cold exposure, but I feel nothing, aside from pain. I definitely still feel pain. Yet there's nothing I can do here but keep my head down and eke out something like survival. As we finally see the real Peter Parker on a location that is far, very far from Earth, and he has definitely seen better days. He is malnourished, weakened, hurt, damaged, yet trying to survive on his alien wasteland. As we see how this happened weeks ago, Peter first arriving here on this planet, him trying to survive as best he can, catching rainwater with his suit, to eating random berries, which he finds out were poisonous and not good for him, to being forced to eat what is the alien equivalent to rats and other rodents and mice. Until eventually he collapsed, his body gives up. We're not sure how he got here or why here specifically, but dropped into completely alien territory isn't the easiest thing to survive and get a game plan going forward. Well, that would have been the case if he wasn't visited by the same sort of presence, voice, entity, whatever this is, from before. The same person that stopped Hellgate from potentially killing Spider-Man is now here to save him once again, calling him the Prince of Steel Silk, and also saying that he's not done, or not yet. Because in that same moment, he's then rescued by an alien ship coming by, spotting him and getting him off that alien wasteland. Now, cutting over weeks later once more, Peter isn't just aboard any random ship in the middle of space, but something called the Beacon, a deep space research vessel. Peter, being healed up back to full health and back to full strength, is here kind of thriving. Though being picked up by an alien starship means that there has to be aliens on board. And there is one in the form of a Dr. Starblood, who is a pretty beefy and strong one. And funnily enough, Dr. Starblood, or Xanto Starblood, he isn't a new character by any means. He has definitely taken his rounds across the Marvel Universe, coming in contact with Sword and the X-Men on a couple of occasions. Obviously meaning there is more to his character that meets the eye. Here though, he is introduced to Peter as an author, a researcher, a scientist, making him pretty intelligent. So when he found Peter, they obviously connected in science and technology, using their intelligence to research and overall bond, because Xanto Starblood isn't familiar with humans. So also taking the time to research Peter, who by every metric is far from being a standard baseline human. And even in a state that Peter is now, yes, he is perfectly healthy and strong again, but only in the baseline sense. He is as strong as Spider-Man usually would be, though Peter is a little disappointed because he was hoping for better. He needs to become stronger. So even over the coming weeks, as he continues to train and research and study with Dr. Starblood, Peter pushes himself using alien technology and methods to his limits, hoping to get stronger in the traditional way. Lift heavy, eat more, get stronger. And that's something I've always wondered about Spider-Man, not only because he's my favorite hero, but it's just interesting to me how at 15 Peter got bit by the spider and then could lift around 10 tons, as he is famously and iconically known to do. Yet if he consistently worked out and used the same gym that the Thing does over in the Baxter building, would by age 25 or late 20s like he is now, would he be stronger and able to lift like 30 tons or whatever? I mean, logically it should work like that. He's still human. It's just that his baseline human strength has been increased due to the spider blood and his mutation. Yet to my knowledge, it is never really explained or further expanded upon like that. And even here, the comic even goes to almost portray it as the opposite. Because sure, while he is back to peak strength and is doing good, that doesn't mean improvement. Like yeah, he is over 100 times stronger than 99.999% of his entire species, but Peter wants more than what he already was. And it seems like normal traditional methods isn't working. But thankfully Xanto here, he isn't just any alien. He is very intelligent, like I said. He's an engineer, one that specializes in other alien biology. So eventually he does agree. He wants to help Peter become stronger for not only Peter's own private goals, whatever he has in mind, you know, Hellgate and all that situation, but also because he is a researcher and wants to see what he can do to push a human to their absolute limits, especially a superhuman like Peter. Later that evening, as Peter is just wandering about this alien world that they have landed on, he goes on to think that the feeling is electric. The words repeat in his brain, pushing out everything else. Yes, he can do it. He can make him stronger, but he is still a little reluctant to turn that confidence into hope. But it is nice to feel something other than despair and fear. If he was back on Earth, back in New York, back in Queens, on a night like this, he would put on the suit and go for a good long swing to clear his head. But soon, once he concludes his galaxy-spanning adventure and training arc, he will be back and better than ever, a new and improved Spider-Man. For now though, the best thing to keep his mind from wandering and overthinking is to do a little bit of work. Xanto is always complaining about the mess on the lower decks in the basement, so he decides, you know what, I'll surprise Dr. Starblood with a little bit of a cleaning session. Unfortunately though, this one decision goes to change everything, as when Peter goes down, he doesn't just find a basement needing cleaning, but he finds cages, a bunch of different species, aliens, sentient people, locked up, caged, and being experimented on. So yes, while Xanto Starblood is a researcher and a pretty accomplished one, his methods in doing it aren't the most savory, especially to someone like Peter. Yes, if it's too good to be true, you know, being picked up by this accomplished alien who agrees to get him stronger, if it sounds too good to be true, then it is too good to be true, as Xanto himself is now there as well. Peter before was under the assumption that yes, he was experimenting but on plants, non-sentient creatures. Though Peter saying the opposite is true, he immediately goes to attack the alien, telling him to let them out. Now, if this was someone like Norman, who is the current acting Spider-Man over in New York, if this was Norman in his place, Norman might have just turned a blind eye. He might have rationalized that yes, this is just a necessary evil to complete his goals, to become stronger, to be a better Spider-Man back on Earth. Even if it means letting this researcher research on sentient and live people, almost torturing them for whatever his scientific goals are. And even Xanto himself questions this, telling Peter that they're in the depths of space on his ship. What will all of this chaos accomplish? And Peter's only answer is simply dignity. The dignity in knowing that what he's doing is right and moral and just, and saving lives instead of just leaving the captives to be kidnapped. But of course, Xanto just calls it overrated. What he is offering Peter right now is something better, giving his life purpose, giving his life over to the greater good of scientific curiosity. Peter before was on the brink of death. He saved him and his life. So Xanto, of course, thinks at the very least Peter owes him for his very survival in every breath he takes. What else option would Peter have? But Peter is able to get clear and walk into the armory and grabbing something very specific. As Peter now has Xanto's flexi suit, the same advanced technology and suit that Xanto has been wearing this entire time, which almost gave him like symbiote-like tendrils and abilities. But this time, of course, with Peter now having it, it gives him not only a pretty cool redesign looking like Spider-Man 2099, but now with him getting his wish and becoming stronger, even if it wasn't in the way he thought it was. But now, aided with the new suit, he can fight Xanto more evenly this time in a direct confrontation. The only downside with this advanced alien technology is it takes a little bit of time to get used to, especially for a primitive like Peter, which leads to him being hit with an attack and shot down. Though Xanto makes the biggest mistake any villain can once the hero has been downed and momentarily defeated. He just continues to talk instead of knocking the hero out or killing him if that was his plan. But Peter goes on to say that we have people just like you back on Earth, tech nuts who prioritize progress over people. Xanto Starblood just goes on to say that that's cool and all, but your opinions no longer matter. Putting the barrel of the gun right in Peter's face, getting ready to shoot him, but this little conversation gave Peter all the time he needed to master and finally figure out the suit. Not only using and figuring out the tendrils, but now hitting with twice the force he did before, dominating the fight, eventually beating and hitting Xanto so hard that the entire spaceship shakes and cracks, completing part 1 of the plan, defeat Xanto and get that over with. Now moving on to part 2 is where he actually frees the people being captive, in which it does take him a little bit to understand the alien technology, but once he does get familiar and able to unlock all of it, we see a couple interesting things going forward. Because yes, all of the people who are captured, kidnapped, and being experimented and tortured are freed, and there's quite a lot of them. But also among the alien faces, we see a few familiar ones, one being Rocket Raccoon, a previous member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and secondly, we see a symbiote. Yes, the same one like Venom, though of course not actually Venom because currently he is back on Earth bonded with Mary Jane in New York. Though it is another one of his species, a Clentar, which currently this set of events leaves Peter in a very peculiar situation. Not only is he very far from Earth, light years away, but he is now tasked with setting these people free and getting them to safety. And after defeating the villain and taking control of the ship now, that leaves Peter the leader and new captain of the spaceship to continue on and go out the entire universe if he needed to continue his goal in becoming stronger, which is something we will continue to see next time as this video and issue comes to a close. As always, this was AJ here at The Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.